The deadline for the government's much-anticipated inquiry into EQC has been pushed back. The inquiry into EQC kicked off this year, led by Dame Sylvia Cartwright, which aims to look at how EQC responded to the Canterbury earthquakes, the Kaikoura earthquake and other disasters such as the Edgecombe floods. You've heard dozens of stories on Checkpoint over the years from people who have struggled dealing with the Commission. An interim report was expected in June and a final report to government by the end of the year. But the interim report's due date has been pushed back to Christmas, and the final report deadline is now March next year. Our South Island reporter Logan Church sat down with Dame Sylvia a short time ago in Christchurch to find out exactly why.
It was always optimistic because, for various reasons, I couldn't start until the end of November last year, and so June was thought to be very, very optimistic. So the Minister and I discussed it at the time of launching the inquiry, and we agreed that once I had got underway, I would come back to her with realistic dates if I was unable to prepare for an interim report to the Governor-General and to her by June.
So what are those realistic dates?
Realistically, I'm looking at a draft report before Christmas. By draft report, I mean one that can be circulated, or parts of it can be circulated to various parties to the inquiry, those who have a particular interest or who I want to get feedback from to make sure I'm on the right track. That draft will be pretty much in its final form, but then once there's time for people to comment, then we need another month or so to complete the report and prepare it for delivery.
And you're expecting the new delivery date to be in March next year?
Yes, I have a 31st of March date because that seemed to me to be the most realistic. I'm hoping, of course, to achieve it sooner than that. I would very much like to have the whole report out by Christmas, but the volume of information that I've been receiving, the number of public forums and meeting with individuals, and the submissions and the formal interviews I've done have been much bigger than I really anticipated.
So essentially there has been a far larger uptake than you initially expected.
Yes, well, we were a bit on unknown territory, to be quite frank with you. Obviously thousands of people in Christchurch have been affected by these events, and so we weren't quite sure how many would come to talk to me. But I also have to allow for the fact that my inquiry is not based just on the Christchurch sequence of events, but also up into Kaikoura, up to Eketahuna, and as far away as Edgecombe, where they had massive floods. So I've moved north steadily to talk to the public in all of those areas as well.
Given the relatively wide scope, which you have just mentioned, and the large volume of people that you have seen, why not put more realistic deadlines out there from the outset?
Well,
because, I mean, in some ways, some people might see this as a delay.
Well, it's possible they would, yes, but no one starting an inquiry has much of an idea about how much information will come to that inquiry. It could be very brief, or it could be that it takes much longer than anyone ever guessed, because you don't know the scope really until you get started.
What are you hearing at these meetings? What are some of the common stories?
Yes, well, I think I could summarise by saying that EQC has suffered significant reputational damage. It was very much a body that people trusted and relied on, but when the massive Christchurch events got underway, especially from the beginning of 2011, when the second major earthquake occurred, it found itself in an area that it had never experienced before, and there was so much planning to be done, so many houses to be reviewed, assessed, so many people without adequate housing, that it was more than this small Crown entity was prepared for.
If I'm to sum up what you just said earlier, that as this got underway, it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's not something that you expected. With that in mind, do you anticipate further date pushbacks, so to speak?
No,
or
I
is this
don't.
it?
Yes, I just have to meet that date. I'm well aware of the responsibility that I have, and I will meet that date.
And that was Dame Sylvia Cartwright talking to our South Island reporter Logan Church.